The Paranormal Activity franchise is a series of films that I don't think gets too much respect. The found footage genre in general doesn't get that much respect. I think it's often accused of being lazy, uncreative, and it generally prompts questions like, why are they still filming? Or a lot of other logical fallacies. I had only ever watched the first and fourth one. First one when it first came out on home video, and the fourth one in theaters. And I didn't really have much feelings towards the first one, and the fourth one I hated, so I just assumed that I wouldn't like the series as a whole. But for this Spooktober, I finally decided that it was finally time to sit down and watch the entire franchise, and then maybe, if I had strong enough feelings afterwards, I would make a video on it. And here we are. Clearly I had strong enough feelings about it. So this is a ranked of the Paranormal Activity series. First things first, I do think that the series takes a big turn after the second movie. I'll get to it in a second here, but I wasn't too crazy about the second film, and I think that after that movie they decided to go for less of a slow-paced, kind of slow burn kind of scary movie, and decided to go for a more entertaining type film. So let's jump right into things. This is the Paranormal Activity series, ranked. Starting off in the number 6 spot is Paranormal Activity 2. Like I said just in the intro there, I really did not like this movie, and the main reason being it was so fucking boring. It has a somewhat exciting climax. It kind of like peaks really suddenly, but then it doesn't really end there. It kind of keeps going, and I don't know. I was just so bored throughout the first good half hour, 45 minutes of this movie, and when scary shit does start to happen, it just felt too samey to the first movie, it just didn't feel as imaginative. It just felt way too boring. Like, it almost felt like, oh shit, the first Paranormal Activity was good, and then they were like, make another one quick, and they didn't really know what made the first one work so well, so they just tried to make it, I don't even know, it was just, like, some of the scares I didn't even realize were supposed to be scares at first, like how the pool cleaner thing kept on ending up outside of the pool. Okay, I didn't care. I didn't like the characters, and one thing that was extremely frustrating and kind of makes it's difficult to talk about when you're ranking movies and then talking about them, out of order, but in the first movie, one thing they do well is limit the amount of cameras that there are. It makes it so that there's a reason why you're only looking through this one camera's perspective, right? It really kind of creates tension that way because you want the camera to get to where the action is, which can be frustrating in both a good way and a bad way. In this movie, there's cameras in like every room of the house, and it cuts away from shit right before it happens for no fucking reason. There is no logical reason why I shouldn't be able to see what's going on in certain scenes in this movie, because the camera just cuts away. And that's when you start asking questions like, well, is this being edited? Why would they edit it this way? This is annoying. I want to see what's going on. Why isn't the camera showing me what's going on? I know that there's a camera pointed at that right now. Whereas in the first movie and some of the other films in the series, you understand why the camera wouldn't be showing you what you want to be seeing. I hope that makes sense. I'm basically just saying that when you limit the amount of cameras, you understand and you don't get as frustrated when you're not seeing something. When you know for a fact that a camera is filming something, you can't help but ask yourself, well, why don't I get to see what's going on? So yeah, I don't know. It was maybe a little bit funnier than the first movie, but not by much. I just overall found this movie extremely annoying. And the fact that they rarely check the cameras, which gets worse in future sequels, just really pisses me off. Coming in at the number 5 spot is Paranormal Activity 4. Honestly, a very similar review to Paranormal Activity 2. It's pretty boring. I found the characters to be pretty mediocre. And actually, some of the characters kind of suck. Like the character Ben is a total creep. There's one scene where he tells his girlfriend, I think, or the girl that he's simping for, that something ghosty happened to her. He recorded her all night, and he either had to skim through all the footage just to find that clip, or he actually had to sit down and be watching her sleep. That's fucking creepy. Toby is a gamer, which is kind of funny. He's playing Connect. Toby's the main bad, I guess. Robbie, who's he's the creepy kid in this movie, rocks a pretty sick fit. Socks and sandals with the lanyard. Paranormal Activity 4 was pretty funny, but I feel like this one was more unintentionally funny than some of the other sequels would be. Ben is a creep, but he's kind of the best and the worst. He has some really funny moments, like genuinely funny moments. But again, his character really sucks, so you kind of feel awkward laughing at them. It does have a decent climax, and I don't think it's actually like good. I just think that the rest of the movie is so boring that when exciting shit does start happening at the end, it kind of catches you off guard. But the most frustrating thing about 4 is that nobody checks the footage at all. And it doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't. Like, they all know that shit's been filmed, and people will be like, no, just let me show you. No, I don't want to. For no reason. And even characters who are down with the filming of everything aren't checking the fucking shit they're shooting. And I watched this with my roommates, and we were just screaming at the screen, please check the footage. And they never do. Drove us crazy, and that frustration persists throughout the entire film, making the experience overall unenjoyable. Coming in at the number 4 spot is Ghost Dimension, Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension, which as of right now is the last film in the Paranormal Activity series. I found this one to be kind of the most middle of the road entry in the series. There wasn't anything outright terrible about it, but there wasn't anything that made me go, wow, this is pretty good. It was just like safe. We'll talk about marked ones more later. I do think that this movie was a tad bit scarier than the marked ones, but again, it's like, when I say scary, I don't know, I generally don't find the Paranormal Activity movies too scary. Normally, how I gauge that just for myself is, how often did I find something to actually be done somewhat effectively? And were there any jump scares that genuinely got me and weren't just a loud noise, catching me off guard in the moment? And I think, in general, there were a few more moments in Ghost Dimension than in the last entry, marked ones, that got me a little bit spooked, I guess. And I mean, I watch a lot of horror movies. Horror movies don't really scare me. It's kind of like I'm sitting there and I'm going like, yes, this was slightly scary, this moment. I thought the idea was kind of neat, but executed poorly. Basically, they get a camera that can film like apparitions and like ghostly things in the house, and I thought that was kind of cool, like a neat idea, filming a camera that can pick up all the ghost stuff that's going on. But I feel like they just used that as an excuse for putting some weird computer-generated shit on the screen and to let the audience see more, which I think kind of takes away from what the Paranormal Activity movies were originally setting out to be. But, it was kind of neat for some scenes, and some of the shit that you see is kind of cool. It's just, you kind of wish they did more with it, and you kind of wish that they were more creative with it. So I know that sounds similar, but what I mean by that is I wish that they used this camera more often in creative ways. Like, I wish it was actually utilized more than just a regular camera, which a lot of the time it feels like they're just using it as a camera and then having like streams of ghosty stuff in the viewfinder. I wish they actually like used it to go into and check out more shit, where I don't feel like they did that. And then I wish they're more creative with it, using it in ways to create scares. Or I feel like basically what I just said is that it's just used as another camera that can see things. There's nothing like, oh, we're looking at, like we just went through this room on a certain lens and we didn't see anything, and he adjusts the focus ring or whatever, and now we see something. Or he's filmed, like a guy's backed into a corner and he's looking through the viewfinder and he doesn't see anything, and as he slowly adjusts the lens, something starts to appear in front of him. I thought that would have been cool, but they didn't do that. Moving on to the number 3 spot, Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones. Marked Ones is the least scary Paranormal Activity movie, but the funniest one bar none. It also has like the most entertaining climax in the entire series, and probably the most entertaining climax in any found footage horror film. I couldn't fucking believe what I was seeing. A bunch of Mexican gangsters show up to the witch's coven with shotguns and Tech 9s and just start fucking shooting them up. It was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. It was so far removed from any other climax in the series that we had come to expect at that point, and it's not scary. And it's not a good movie, but you can't help but laugh, and you can't help but be like somewhat entertained. And I think that was the most important thing at this point, is that after 2, the movies, like, you couldn't do the slow burn thing anymore. And then 3, we'll get to that one later, did some creative stuff and managed to find a good balance. Marked Ones was just like, fuck it, just make the craziest, funniest movie we can. Paranormal Activity 4 sucked. We're just going balls to the walls with this one. That being said, it's both intentionally funny and unintentionally funny. Yeah, I don't know, I liked this movie. I can look at it objectively, I guess, and be like, yeah, that was pretty whack. But I had a good time watching it, I can't deny that. Moving on to the number 1 and number 2 spot, there's only 2 entries left. Paranormal Activity 3 and Paranormal Activity 1. And I kind of flip-flop on them. It kind of depends the mood I'm in. I feel like Paranormal Activity 1 does a pretty solid job of pacing itself and creating suspenseful scenes, and, you know, I think the scares work. I think the first Paranormal Activity is the scariest one. But I think the third movie is far more creative, utilizes much more interesting camera work, has the smartest characters, and is kind of the middle ground between the slow burn, trying to be like a suspenseful horror film, Paranormal Activities, and then the Marked Ones kind of horror, like the more we're trying to be blockbustery entertainment schlock. I think that 3 is that transitional movie, that middle ground, and for that reason, I'm going to put Paranormal Activity, the first film, in the number 2 spot, and Paranormal Activity 3 in the number 1 spot. So with Paranormal Activity 1, I find the camera work to be effective, especially looking back on it from after watching the entire series and getting frustrated with films like 4 or 2, where there's several cameras set up and they just don't show the crazy shit happening sometimes. I want to see that. In the first movie, they limit you to 1 camera for the most part, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I want to see what's going on. This is getting exciting. And, you know, you're doing it with the characters. It makes sense why they're filming. You know, limiting the cameras was a smart move in the long run, and probably something that, like, you know, they thought maybe was a detriment to the movie, and that's why they kept on adding cameras and, you know, camera gimmicks in the future films. But really, I think that it's one of the things that helped the movie be effective with its scares. The performances in it are passable. I don't really care for the characters too much. They don't act poorly. The actors do a solid enough job, a believable job. I do believe what they're going through, but there's some moments where the acting kind of gets hammy. And number 1, Paranormal Activity 3. Like I said, I think it's the best balance of scary and, you know, more of the blockbustery entertainment Paranormal Activity films. The dust that lands on the ghost after the earthquake was kind of neat. It starts off somewhat subtle like the first movie, it's pacing itself, but it doesn't take as long to get going and to start getting scary like the second movie did. I just overall enjoyed this one a bit more. It does have, by far, the smartest character in the entire series, Randy, who as soon as he has a somewhat too intense ghostly experience, just fucking pieces, just says, fuck this, I'm out of here. So this is the final ranking here. You know, you can leave a comment if you disagree or have different thoughts or questions. I appreciate you guys watching this, but just before we leave, I'd like to mention that I left out a film. Some of you may have noticed that I did not include Paranormal Activity 2 Tokyo Nights on this list. Now, most people don't even know that Paranormal Activity 2 Tokyo Nights exists, but it does, and from what I can tell, it is only loosely connected to the series. I haven't watched it yet, pretty much because I cannot find it anywhere. I tried to rent it off of YouTube or Apple TV. I'm going to look again, and maybe I'll make a follow-up video specifically reviewing that film, and in that video I'll include where I place it in the rankings, but I decided that it was fine to not include it, mainly because most people don't even know it exists, and also because I think while it connects itself in some ways to the Paranormal Activity movies, it isn't technically canon. You know, it's like canon plus, you know, like if you want to include it in the overall, you know, franchise, that's fine, but it's not necessary. It doesn't add much to the main plot. And that's my video ranking the Paranormal Activity movies. Thank you so much for watching. Let's raise the spookometer. Well, okay, I don't know where my dry erase marker is. This is good. Good on me for being prepared, as usual. Fuck, here it is. God. Now that's a big series of movies, so we're gonna take a nice sizable jump with the spookometer here. Getting close to Halloween. It's getting spookier. Uh, yeah. Definitely not panicking that I haven't filled it up much. But there we go. Look at that. We're getting there. I do want to mention that there is, thanks for watching.